All right, let's just dive right into this explainer because we're looking at something absolutely wild today. We are uncovering how everyday, ordinary online consumer behavior is literally revolutionizing a century-old legal framework. Think about it. We interact with brands constantly, right? We buy them, we wear them, we post about them online. But what if I told you that those casual little comments you leave on a Reddit thread or maybe a fashion blog are actually being scraped, compiled, and then used in federal courts to reshape the boundaries of intellectual property? Yeah, today we're taking a look at the invisible gears of trademark law, how they were originally built, and how the internet is just completely rewriting the rulebook. So, to get us started, I want to pose a question. How in the world could the geographical origin of a famous hot sauce from the Deep South possibly be linked to, of all things, modern internet beauty discussions and luxury French handbags? I know, at first glance it sounds like the setup to a really strange joke. But the thread that connects a 19th century salt dome to a tube of eyebrow gel and a $3,000 leather bag is actually a foundational concept in trademark law. It's the very concept that dictates exactly who gets to own a word, a phrase, or even a shape.
So here is our roadmap for the explainer today. We'll start off with the Avery Island Empire, then unpack the trademark problem, learn a bit about proving secondary meaning, explore how the internet changes everything, and finally look at the power of mark talk.
Section 1. The Avery Island Empire.
Let's start by picturing the lush, incredibly isolated geography of Avery Island. Now, this isn't just any island. It's a massive rock-salt dome in Louisiana, 3 miles long, completely surrounded by slow-moving bayous and swampland. And crucially, it is the seat of the McElhenny family's empire. The island was purchased way back in 1818, but things really heat up, pun intended, in 1868 when Edmund McElhenny founds his company and starts manufacturing a very special pepper sauce. Fast forward to 1870, and he officially receives a patent for his Tabasco brand sauce processing formula, which is crazy because it's a process they still use today. The family didn't just build a hot sauce empire, though. They were serious stewards of the land. They even founded a sanctuary called Bird City in 1895 just to save egrets from plume hunters. But as they grew their famous Tabasco sauce brand and became a household name, they ran headfirst into a major legal hurdle, which ultimately culminated in the 1922 Trappe versus McElhenny Company trademark case.
Which brings us to Section 2, the trademark problem.
The exact problem they faced was that Tabasco is actually a geographic descriptor. It was a well-known region in Mexico, and under early trademark law, descriptive or geographic words could not be easily trademarked. And the reasoning for this is actually incredibly sound. How do you stop a competitor from just using the same descriptive word? Trademark law wants to protect consumers from deception for sure, but it also has to ensure fair competition. It's like, if you sell apples, you can't trademark the word apple for your fruit, because then literally no other farmer can describe what they sell. But if you sell computers, well, Apple works perfectly. So to protect their geographically descriptive brand, Tabasco had to prove this really dense legal concept called secondary meaning. Basically, this happens when a descriptive mark becomes distinctive in the minds of the public. It acquires a new source-indicating meaning that sits second to its primary descriptive meaning. Put simply, it means that when someone hears the word Tabasco, their brain no longer thinks of a region on a map first. Their brain immediately thinks of that specific spicy red sauce in the little glass bottle. This principle of secondary meaning was so vital, it was actually formalized later on in the 1946 Lanham Act.
Okay, Section 3, proving secondary meaning.
Establishing a neat legal theory is one thing, right? But proving it in a courtroom is an entirely different beast. How exactly did a company convince a judge that the general public connected a descriptive word specifically and uniquely to their brand? I mean, judges couldn't just read the minds of millions of consumers. So for decades, courts had to rely on circumstantial proxies. They basically had to guess consumer perception by looking at the producer's behavior. They'd look at things like, did the company spend massive amounts of money on advertising expenditures? Have they been the exclusive user of the mark for a really long time? Do they have massive sales volume? Are competitors attempting to plagiarize them? If the answer was yes to those, the court would just assume, well, they spent millions of dollars and decades pushing this brand, so the public must recognize it. But as we all know, just because a company spends a fortune trying to make a brand happen doesn't mean the public actually buys into it. It was just a proxy, a best guess.
Moving on to Section 4, the internet changes everything. Now, what's really fascinating here is how the digital age and social media have entirely upended this old legal guessing game. We no longer have to guess what the public thinks, because let's face it, the public never stops telling us. We're shifting from the old way to the new way. We no longer have to rely on millions of dollars in ad spend or circumstantial proxies as proof. The internet provides direct, unfiltered evidence of consumer perception through what legal scholars are now calling mark talk. Mark Talk is just the everyday language consumers use online when they review a product, post on a forum, or tweet a complaint. It's the public collectively forming a judgment in real time. And this is absolutely vital because secondary meaning isn't something a company creates in a boardroom. It's a social concept. It doesn't actually exist until the community agrees it exists.
Let's look at a modern example of Mark Talk in action. In 2015, the breakout beauty brand Glossier launched a grooming pomade called Boy Brow. Now, an examining attorney at the trademark office might look at that and say, wait, hold on, that's merely descriptive. It just describes the purpose of the product, giving a user a boyish brow. Under the old rules, Glossier might have had to wait years and show massive ad spend to prove secondary meaning. But today, you just go online. A search for Boy Brow on Reddit returned 98 threads. And get this, 94 of them explicitly reference the Glossier brand, not just a general descriptive look. Users were capitalizing it, pairing it with the brand name, and discussing the specific product. Only one single thread used it to refer to a general makeup look. So Glossier's descriptive boy brow proves its secondary meaning almost instantly today, because online Mark Talk unequivocally shows that consumers recognize it as a specific, singular brand.
Section 5. The Power of Mark Talk. Let's see how all this builds into an incredibly clever legal strategy involving a high-end luxury fashion item. This is where Mark Talk flexes its true legal muscle. Take the iconic Celine luxury bag. Celine wanted to trademark this specific design, the layout of the zipper, the stitching, the handles. This is known in the legal world as trade dress. When they initially applied, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office flatly rejected them, citing a lack of distinctiveness. Naturally, Celine tried to fight back using the old way. They submitted a document showing 6 years of continuous use, over $150 million in sales, and $17 million in advertising. By all traditional metrics, all those old circumstantial proxies, they absolutely should have won. But the USPTO issued a second refusal and then a third. The old proxies just weren't convincing enough to prove that consumers saw this specific stitching and shape as a unique identifier of the Celine brand.
So Celine's legal team pivots to the new way. They realize the bag's design, specifically the horizontal zipper acting as a mouth and the handle supports looking like eyes, was being heavily discussed online. They submitted a massive 750-page document filled entirely with internet Mark Talk. They literally pulled consumer comments from fashion blogs. People were saying things like, now all I see is a sad robot when I look at that bag, or I can't get over the fact that it looks like a sort of sideways frowny face. They proved, using the public's own unfiltered words, that consumers universally recognized the bag's specific face design and associated it directly with their brand. And guess what? It worked. The Mark Talk won them the trademark.
It turns out we aren't just consumers anymore, we are the active creators of secondary meaning. Every single time you talk about a product online, whether you're raving about a hot sauce, critiquing a makeup product on Reddit, or making fun of a handbag that looks like a sad robot, you are literally shaping modern trademark law. You are out there doing the legal heavy lifting for these brands, turning descriptive words and everyday shapes into protected, million-dollar intellectual property. Which leaves us with this final question to consider before your next tweet. What brands are you legally empowering every time you post, tweet, or leave an online review? Definitely something to think about the next time you jump into a thread.